Welcome back to this already, the final segment of today's Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Lee Kaplan, he is a regular on the program. His law firm, Spicer, Kaplan, and Veselka. That's skv.com. And very interesting firm, a boutique firm with a big footprint. Tell us a little bit about the firm and before we get into our topics today, Lee, and welcome as always.
We're a pure litigation firm, so we handle trials, arbitrations, and appeals, and we do all kinds of commercial cases and white-collar criminal matters.
And you guys do some extraordinary work at that. Speaking of law firms, there's a lot of pressure going on out there. Obviously, the practice of law is extremely strategic. A lot of information exchanged, a lot of information held on computers that can make or break lawsuits. And you were mentioning before that there was, I guess you could say, more pressure being put on law firms because of lawsuits being brought against them for failing to totally protect or thoroughly protect their clients' information. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the first targets for this are probably large New York-based law firms because they handle major securities transactions more frequently than firms in other parts of the country, although clearly large firms everywhere handle those. So there are lawsuits being filed on behalf of classes, and they're being filed under seal, the theory being that the plaintiff's firm says, we're going to give these people a chance to fix their security going forward before we alert potential hackers to the flaw we found. So what's undoubtedly going on is this plaintiff's firm is going out there and finding people to try to hack into big law firm databases. And when they do that, they then can file a lawsuit, and then they can do discovery on all the deals that law firm did and try to represent a class. And it's not very hard to find somebody who's willing to be a class member to get back some of the money they paid that law firm and or extra money. So, and this is a wave that's going to come. It's going to come to law firms just as it has to other businesses. Lawyers are not immune from being, I guess, the victim of their own medicine. So I think we're going to see a lot of this in the future.
What do you think? First of all, we were already beginning to see it happen. Is that true?
Right. There are some lawsuits that have been filed against major firms, mostly based in New York, claiming they fail to protect their clients' information. So, for example, if a hacker could hack into a law firm's database and learn about an upcoming transaction that might affect the stock price of a publicly traded company, they could trade on that information. And they could find ways, hopefully, to conceal, hopefully for them, to conceal that they had gotten that information illegitimately and make a killing in the stock market, which, of course, affects all the investing public.
Wow. You know what's the most shocking thing about this, Lee, is that they hadn't done this sooner.
Well, it takes a little while for the legal profession to catch up to a lot of things, but sooner or later, because it's so large, somebody thinks of these things. Back in the 80s, you'd see legal assistants at big law firms be prosecuted for selling inside information. They'd be paid to give out special information, and some of them pled, some of them went to jail. But this is just the newest version where it's sort of long distance getting inside information by hacking rather than paying somebody at a law firm who works in the copy room to give information about some deal that's pending.
Do you think this has probably now been going on for quite a while in terms of the hacking to get that kind of information, that insider trading information, essentially?
I would expect so. Mm-hmm. We have 300 million Americans, and we have people overseas who are always thinking of ways to make money easy. And this is one easy way to make money if you hack into something that's supposed to be protected. And there are people who are just devilishly clever. If the United States Defense Department can be hacked into, then surely there are law firms which don't have their defenses erected all that high. It's a constant battle between offense and defense on protecting your information. And so
let me ask you, what do you think consequentially? What are law firms going to do about it?
Well, I can tell you what my law firm has done. We have consulted with people to constantly check our security, monitor it. Some law firms, and I won't name names, but some law firms essentially do what's called a test hack. They'll go and get a consultant with access to hackers who try to break into the law firm's security or any other business, and that's a way of identifying what the vulnerabilities are. It's just the kind of thing of Willie Sutton. Why'd you rob banks? That's where the money is. Well, people then would hire Willie Sutton to consult with them on how to protect the banks from being robbed, and this is what people do. They'll hire consultants who will hire hackers to try to break into a law firm's security or business.
Also, before we got started, you were talking about some changes in the legal field when it comes to trade secrets. Kind of give us a little bit of background on that and what some of the things that are developing regarding that.
Yes, there is a new federal law called the Defend the Trade Secrets Act. It's called the DTSA. I've always been somewhat dubious about the need for that. Every state has plenty of trade secret law, but some companies, particularly those that have operations in multiple states, wanted a truly uniform law that they might proceed against employees who perhaps are working across state lines and taking trade secrets. Sometimes they'll have 3 or 4 people that might be in different states, and they leave a company and form a competing company. And there are some additional protections. It's called the DTSA. It's brand new. I'm not even sure that President Obama has signed it, but he publicly endorsed it quite some time ago. The biggest thing that it offers is the opportunity to seize the materials that a departing employee may have taken or somebody else may have taken. On the other hand, it denies injunctive relief against people who are entering into a new employment relationship. I think one advantage of it, there are times when a company may feel that by being in federal court, that will have a greater intimidating effect against people who have taken their trade secrets or departed from their company, that is, individuals. On the other hand, my personal belief, at least in Houston, is that the state courts are totally adequate to handle these cases and issue the right kind of relief. But if you're a business and you think somebody's taking your trade secrets or about to, then I would certainly mention it to my attorney, who may or may not be familiar with the law, because it is brand new.
Well, I think, I think you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more on that. So what do you think long-term, consequentially, what this is going to result in?
I personally think there'll be virtually no effect.
Virtually no effect,
I think this is a solution in search of a problem. We do have a problem about, theft of trade secrets, but every state has plenty of laws on that. I think in general, federal court is not better for something like this. And if you are a locally based company, the theory is that a state court judge may be more friendly to you. Now, there are jurisdictions where perhaps there are only 2 judges, and you know both of them, and you think both of them are slow, or they don't really jump on these kind of cases, or they're unsympathetic to these kind of cases. But in general, I think there's no particular add-on from this law. It's just
and in addition to that, I like the competitive nature of state governments. Maybe the states can find the best solution, and those best solutions rise to the top in other states. When you start getting federal uniformity, you lose that competitive edge.
Well, we have what's called the Uniform Trade Secrets Act, which many states have adopted. They may have given it a different name. I don't really understand the additional protection of this, other than the possibility of seizing materials ex parte, but you can only do that if you make very specific showing to the federal judge. So, as I say, I would check with my attorney and have he or she look at this new federal law, but my own personal bias, absent somebody explaining to me a better reason or a reason that we're better off in federal court, is to just go to state court. At least in Houston, the judges here are very responsive in state court to trade secret theft.
Yeah, very, very true. Talk a little bit, we were talking just before the break. I wasn't going to include this, but really, this is some common sense that should be part of the conversation about Uber and Lyft. I'm a huge Uber user. When I go into a city, it's my go-to form of ground transportation. I never wait more than a few minutes for a ride, and they're every bit as professional as any cab drivers I've dealt with. And so there's the situation here in the city of Houston where, at least compared to other cities, it seems to be onerous, that's leading to the potential of Uber and Lyft leaving. Talk a little bit about that. And I would like you to just mention a common sense solution I've been talking about as well. Go right ahead.
Well, I've been a little baffled by this controversy, at least from what I understand. Uber is complaining that fingerprint checks are just too slow. And to me, the solution, and the city is claiming, of course, that they're pretty swift. To me, the answer is, let Uber do its regular check, and a driver can be a provisional driver, and the city has, say, 60 days to run its fingerprint check or whatever else it has. And if the city doesn't have something that turns up, some agreed-upon list of offenses or problems that turn up from the city's check, then that person becomes a full-fledged driver. That puts the onus on the city to do its job swiftly. And if it doesn't, that person is the driver. I mean, the truth is, there will always be people who make it through every background check, and nonetheless, either they're bad people and they assault the passenger, or they go crazy. They have some sort of mental breakdown, and they shoot people or assault them or crash their vehicle into somebody. You can't prevent all of that. But this way, Uber can operate, and the city has a role in doing its job to make sure that people are protected as best it can. So that would be my solution, but I guess it remains to be seen if it will be adopted.
You're just too reasonable, and so am I. I've been saying the same thing. And the reality is that there's murdering, thieving, raping taxi drivers, too. And it's good that we try to get them off the road as well. But as soon as you tell someone they got 60 days to go through the fingerprint process, most nefarious ones will, get out of that situation and not even want to be subject to that. The reality is that what you're talking about is so reasonable and would solve a really, ridiculous problem that shouldn't exist. Because these drivers, these Uber drivers, they're just looking for an opportunity to pursue the American dream without spending a fortune in franchise fees and other costs that are often required. And it just seems to me like government is colluding to me with taxi companies to prevent that from happening. That's the way I perceive it.
You've inspired me to send an email today to the new city attorney and suggesting this to him.
I think you should. I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe we can get some momentum going.
All right.
We'll get the listeners to do the same thing. Let's encourage them. Thanks so much. You are awesome as always. Lee Kaplan, he's a regular on the program. You can obviously tell why. He always brings a lot of wisdom and insight to every show. I always look forward to him being on, and look forward to having you on again, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Lee Kaplan, Smizer, Kaplan in Veselka. skv.com if you want to find them online. All right, that's today's show. Do you want to remind you the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.